Hello guys, welcome back to another episode review of Hollyoaks. For today's episode, which is Monday 23rd of February 2026. What an episode. I really enjoyed this. John Paul is leaving. It's official. He's finally and actually leaving. And I don't mean that in a good way because he's going to be truly missed. He is one of my favourite characters on Hollyoaks. I think all the characters are really good. But John Paul definitely has to be up there with one of my favourites. I just cannot believe he's leaving. When I first found out, I was shocked. You know, there's some veterans on Hollyoaks that you just think that, if they left, then it would lose. They make the culture of Hollyoaks. And I'm so sad to see John Paul actually leaving. I think even as a character, even James Sutton in real life, I think is a terrific person. They're really down to earth, and it's just hard to explain. You just really like them as a person and the character that they play in Hollyoaks. A true asset. Now, according to Digital Spy, I did have a look. The reason why he's leaving is, don't quote me on this, I'm just going off by what Digital Spy have said, is because that he feels like he's exhausted his character and the roles and everything that he plays, in terms of there's a lot of emotional stuff. He's running out of steam. He's having to keep crying in each for most episodes. He's gone through pretty dark storylines, etc. So I suppose he just wants to step back. Although it's a permanent departure, I do feel like he may be back in the future, and I could only hope so. Which a lot of characters do when they have that long break. Because don't forget, it's in any job. If you've exhausted yourself to the max and you've worked really hard, you will suffer a burnout. It's a real thing, and it happens to a lot of people in across industries. Any job you work hard, you will burn out. And I have a feeling that's happened to John Paul or James Sutton in real life. He's probably having a bit of a burnout, which he didn't state himself. But you don't need to at this point. We can gather that he just wants a break. He wants to step back. And also he does feel like that he's been lately he's been kind of pushed to the side in terms of, or becoming a side character. This is my words, what I'm explaining. He just feels like he's being left out now, and which makes a lot of sense. He's always been a main character, and he should always be a main character. John Paul is John Paul. You can't replace him. He's a very lovable person, I reckon, and it's just like Nancy and Darren and Mercedes and those types of veterans on Hollyoaks that without them you would just lose the culture. They make up the culture of Hollyoaks, and I feel like he's a massive part. And I hope no other long life members are permanently leaving. I do see him coming back though. Anyway, maybe after 5 years. But you can see in the picture that they're all hugging the McQueens, and they're all sad. Everyone's crying. I think this is going to affect Prince because John Paul was his fellow male McQueen in the family. Now Prince is going to suffer, I think, more, given the steroids that he's just bought in, later on from his dealer. Diane even found it quite dodgy, and it's just it's a shame really that Prince is going down this, path. I hope Diane does clock and whistle blow, because, we want good for Prince. He's a really good person as well, I do think McQueen's is one of my favourite families on Hollyoaks. It's, John Paul did leave them a note initially. He went to say goodbye to Mercedes and ended up finding out that, the rest of the McQueens have followed him. And he just didn't want to have this, sob kind of goodbye or emotional goodbye, really. And it's it is probably his last episode. His son rang and he's going to Switzerland. Matthew Jesus, and hopefully, the character has a good life down there. I'm really banking on him coming back. Elsewhere, we have Dodger being suspended, and his chief has suspended him. Now Sully's being released as well because they've lost some evidence. That's going to be bad, very bad. It's already turning bad because Sully has showed up at his dad's house, Froggy's flat. It gets funny because Rex he's been dressing himself in women's clothes recently. I think we are seeing a storyline here. I'm not sure exactly what it would be, but it might just be he just enjoys wearing women's clothes. And Rose, probably the only person that knows for now. But what happened was Rose dropped some of Diane's old clothes that he was probably meant to take to charity, but instead he gave it to Rex. Rex took them back to the flat and he started wearing them. He wore one of the zebra printed gowns, Diane's gowns. I probably have seen it on Diane before. But anyway, Froggy came inside the flat, and then Rex hid behind the mirrors, and he was just stuck there basically until Froggy was about to leave, but then Sully came at the door, and then Sully came in threatening his own dad. And then, Froggy said, his heart's going to give out, just to leave him alone. Sully wasn't going anywhere. And, Rex had no choice but to come out and, hit Sully over the head. I thought he might have a fight with Sully in his dressing gown, which I would have really liked to see. But I think Hollyoaks has preserved the character's dignity. Only because that no one knows. That's the sense that I'm speaking from when I say dignity. So, if Rex wants to, he's a free man, everyone's free. He's free to wear whatever he wants. But it's because the awkwardness it's because his grandfather doesn't know about it. About his recent hobby. Let's call it a hobby. And that's what made it very awkward because Froggy was just shocked. If Froggy knew about it, that's fine. No one. It's not awkward at all. But because Froggy didn't know, it was just a surprise. It just ended up. The episode just ended with with Rex hitting Sully over the head. Sully fell to the floor, and just Froggy just staring in shock at Rex. Whilst Rex was wearing the gown. That's where it ended. It was an epic ending. I'll give you that. I'll give Hollyoaks that. It was a very epic ending. I don't think it was a surprise, a bit funny because of the awkwardness. And I want to see more endings like this. I really enjoyed the episode, guys. What can I say? What else happened? Yeah, Darren and Jack moving some gear to the restaurant. I really like seeing Darren and Jack together. I find them a very funny combo. The other main story is that Gemma, she retrieved some CCTV footage of the night in Liverpool, and unfortunately, what it looks like, very likely, that she has just witnessed her father being the R word by Sully. And it was very just, sad because she's having to watch her own dad being in that position. And Sully is someone that she's worked with all her life, or most of her life. And Sully was someone that she trusted. Even though everyone warned Sully, was against Sully, she still kind of backed Sully all the time. So in a sense, I'm a bit relieved that Gemma will now see Sully for what he is. He's just a wrong un. I hope she now hands in that footage so that they can bang Sully in for life. Listen, guys, I'm going to leave it there because it's been quite a long episode review, and I'll see you in tomorrow's one. Peace.